Hey, I'm Mark, and I wanted to tell you guys about how my crazy mom and sister tried to set me up. I shouldn't have been surprised at all, considering how poorly they had treated me since I was a kid. You see, my mom was desperate to make my sister Joy a star. She was enrolled in every sort of class you could think of to make her the ultimate entertainer. I, on the other hand, was a bit of a klutz. Mom would say I was too gangly and uncoordinated to do anything of worth. My only responsibility was to stay far away from Joy, so that no one knew I was her brother. Seriously. I was dropped off blocks away from school and made to walk the rest of the way so I wouldn't get out of the same car as Joy. I wasn't allowed to look at or talk to her in the hallways. My mom even had my last name changed to her maiden name. No one thought it was weird because not a soul knew we were related. I was just another loser that Joy and her friends made fun of. The only friends I ever had were in the comic book club, but that wasn't exactly the cool clique. Soon, Joy was booking commercials, and my mom turned into the craziest stage mom there had ever been. She pulled Joy and myself out of high school, and I was now going to be her personal assistant. Unpaid, I might add. My mom treated me like a dispensable employee around the house. I was on call. Your sister shouldn't be doing anything that requires her to expend any unnecessary energy. She is the star here, and the only reason you have those clothes on your back is because of her. We all know you are useless, so we've set up classes for you to be competent at taking care of your sister's needs. For the next 6 months, I was forced to learn the classic skills that any good lackey would need to know. I learned how to cook, iron, chauffeur, even bodyguard. I was trained in massage therapy and psychotherapy. I was soon running my sister from audition to audition all over the state. Whenever she would fail, my mom would blame me, and me only. I had gotten her there too late or too early, or I was breathing too loud and ruined Joy's concentration. Long story short, I was the catalyst for anything that went wrong in Joy's career. My mom would constantly warn I was on thin ice. If Joy didn't get famous soon, we would be broke, and the first thing that would go would be me. The final straw came on Joy's audition for American Idol. I had been so stressed leading up to the audition that I was operating on 5 hours of sleep. I could barely keep my eyes open. I fell asleep as I was ironing Joy's custom-made outfit. I tried to fix it as best I could, but my mom burst in and saw the disaster. So, you decided you're just going to up and sabotage your sister on her big day? I knew you couldn't be trusted. I was locked in my room, and Joy was whisked off to the American Idol audition, where she subsequently embarrassed herself on national television. The clip of her auditioning went viral, and my mom's worst nightmare had finally been realized. Our family was the laughingstock of the internet. Embarrassed, Joy ran away from home, and my mom had lost her cash cow. There was only one person to blame. Me. My mom made an itemized list of all the costs I had incurred for the family, along with the lost future earnings from Joy. I was forced to sign a promissory note saying I would pay back all the lost future income Joy was expected to make. It would be years before I made enough money to pay off the debt. I would do anything to get out from under my vindictive mother. I spent the next year taking any odd job I could. The one positive I could take away from my childhood was I had more work experience than anyone my age. It wasn't long before I applied to the one place where all my talents could be truly appreciated. I started at the hippest hotel in town as a doorman, and I soon was concierge, taking care of all the high-level guests. The only thing was all my money was going to my greedy mom. One morning, as I stood outside in the cold waiting for a guest, a limo pulled up, and out walked one of the most gorgeous girls I had ever seen. I had no idea that would be the day I would meet one of the biggest influencers in the world. Her name was April, and she was only going to be in the country for a few more days on her fan meet and greets. As she walked up, I could see a disaster unfolding. The ground was covered in snow, and she was wearing high heels. I saw her slip before anyone else, and I leapt into action, grabbing her right before she hit the ground. From that moment on, we were in love. Despite being a worldwide star, April was one of the most down-to-earth girls I had ever met. She was a beauty streamer, and only became famous accidentally after her videos were accidentally uploaded. From that point on, she had millions of followers and a burgeoning makeup empire. What she really dreamed about was living a quiet life away from the spotlight. But there were so many people in her entourage who relied on her continuing success. Seeing how my sister Joy was pushed in the same way, I could totally relate to the struggle. That summer, April made a proposal. "Why don't you come on the road with me and the other vloggers? You're pretty much a jack of all trades, and the girls always need someone to keep them in line. Plus, you and I can spend time together." That day, I quit the hotel and agreed to manage April and 10 of her most talented influencer friends. Before I knew it, I was in Japan, Europe, South America, surrounded by the most beautiful and talented women in the world. And to top it off, one of them was my girlfriend. Everything was perfect. I was always in the background my whole life, which made the next few weeks after we arrived back from Europe some of the craziest days of my life. Slowly, pictures began to appear online of me next to April on the beach in Europe. Everyone wanted to know who the mystery man was, and soon I was the biggest mystery on the internet. As I watched the latest gossip news, I saw a face I hadn't seen, and certainly hadn't wanted to see for years. My mom was going on every outlet she could trying to make money off of my name. She claimed that I was her favorite child and she knew April for many years. I couldn't believe what she was telling to these news outlets. "I'm not surprised April would want to date someone like my son. I taught him everything he knows. I also had a very talented daughter. If you like, I could sell you guys some of her old videos for a reasonable price."
How long have these two been an exclusive item?"
"Mark was always a ladies' man, but he and April have known each other for years. She's practically a daughter to me. I just hope Mark doesn't break her heart like he did with all those other girls. April, if you ever want to talk, please know I'm here, sweetie." I was being railroaded in front of millions of people by a woman who never cared about me. Not only that, but April was starting to question who I really was. I always kept my past well away from April, considering for the first 18 years of my life, I was basically a servant. Now, she was wondering if I was a womanizer those first few years of my life. April soon asked for some space to figure things out. I left her mansion and found a small apartment in the grimiest part of town. The least I could do was give her some time to find out I wasn't the man my mother said I was. I kept myself locked in my damp, dark apartment for months waiting for a call from April that never came. One day, I had a knock on my door, and when I opened it, there stood my sister Joy. She looked completely different, and it wasn't hard to tell the years we had been apart had been beyond rough for her. She was crying and could barely get out what she was trying to say.
"I was so terrible to you, Mark, and I needed to say sorry for treating you like you didn't matter. I was so focused on Mom's dreams for me that I never stopped to think you were the only person who truly supported me. Can you ever forgive me?"
I knew Joy and I were both victims of our cruel mother. It wasn't her fault she was driven to be a child star. I couldn't blame her for how terribly she treated me when we were just children. I agreed to let her stay with me until she could get on her feet. I mean, after all, she was my only sister. It wasn't long before I started to think something was up. Joy would constantly ask about April and her routine and my contact with her. It wasn't long before she took over my living room for TikTok dance videos and then my kitchen for her weekly cooking shows. I was slowly starting to fall back into my old assistant ways. Joy was once again the star. One afternoon, while I was sitting outside my apartment while Joy filmed her latest video, I heard a familiar voice. It was Todd, one of the few friends I had in high school. He was dressed like $1,000,000, and here I was in my pajamas locked outside my apartment.
"Hey man, long time no see. We haven't seen you since high school."
We?
Yeah, me and the guys finally formed that comic book company we always talked about back then. Those characters you helped create really took off, man. What have you been up to lately?"
I couldn't say yes to joining the team fast enough. I had finally found something that I was passionate about, and more importantly, I had found something that was fully mine. I was going to keep the news to myself, but hiding anything from someone as nosy as Joy was an impossibility. as soon as I entered the apartment.
Was that one of your friends from that loser club you used to be a part of?
It was a comic book club, and yes, that was Todd.
He looks like he's doing quite well for himself.
Yeah, turns out those comic books pay off sometimes. That was all Joy needed to hear, and for the next few months, she embarked on a campaign of the creepiest behavior I had ever seen. Joy decided to start a new channel in my living room with the cringiest content I had ever seen, and this was just the beginning. She began to wear skimpier and skimpier outfits around the house, and every interaction we had seemed like it was part of an elaborate charade.
Oh, baby brother, did you need the bathroom? I can't believe you would burst in on me like that.
Well, this is my house, Joy, and I did knock about 10 times, and got no response. Also, why are there so many cameras set up all over the house?
I'm trying to give my fans' family a snapshot into my life, Mark.
I couldn't bring myself to say that I felt like I barely even knew Joy. For the first 20 years of my life, I was basically her employee. These random displays of affection made no sense to me, until I once again became a viral sensation. This time, it was for all the wrong reasons. I met up with Todd and the guys for the next couple of weeks, and I finally felt like my own person again. Our new comic was a hit, and the money was rolling in. I even had a like from April on our Instagram posts. Reconciliation between me and April was in the air, until my mom and sister tried to stop me again. One morning, I woke up to Todd banging on my door. Our comic was on the verge of being canceled, and it was all my fault. Apparently, Joy and my mother had set me up. Turns out all the cameras around my house were set up to make me look like a creep, making me look like I'm crushing on my sister. All the clips were edited and put onto YouTube, and before long, I was public enemy number 1. It wasn't long before Joy and my mom were trying to shop their sob story to every news outlet that would listen. I resigned my position in the comic book company, and I put to the side any hope of getting back with April. I was a social pariah. One day, as I hid from the world in my apartment, Joy and my mom came by with a proposal.
We're willing to let this whole thing blow over if you sign over half of all the profits you make from your little comic book. We also want Joy in April's inner circle.
There's no way she would talk to me after what you guys did. Everyone thinks I'm a creep who spies on his own sister.
Mom and I have plenty of videos making you look even worse. So you better figure out how to get me on April's level before we really force you to go into hiding.
I had no choice but to contact April. To my surprise, she actually believed me, but told me it would be career-ending to be anywhere near me or my toxic family. Just then, I had an idea. I was going to use my sister's narcissism to orchestrate her downfall. I asked April to trust me, and being the kind soul she was, she agreed. I got April to agree to take my sister in, under a group of influencers. What I really needed was someone to keep an eye on her while I worked on my new plan. For weeks, I worked on a new comic that was based on my very unique experiences. I came to my old comic buddies and explained the dilemma I was in. I told them the idea I had for a new comic that they could release. The main characters were a mom and daughter duo who would do anything to get famous. I hid my involvement by writing under a pen name, and I was surprised to find my stories were a hit. As Joy became more popular, her followers began to notice hints that the main characters in my stories bore a striking resemblance to their new favorite influencer. Everything was fully confirmed when April secretly recorded a frustrated Joy admitting she blackmailed me into making her famous. It was long before the canceller became the cancelled. And now I'm back with April. But this time I decided to take more of a background role. The guys put me in charge of the business side of our new comic book empire, and we're already thinking about making movies with our characters. Last I heard from Joy and my mom, they were trying to make any video they could to get famous. But it's a little difficult to gain followers when everyone knows you're so desperate.